I should be like you, Melvin.
Ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Hello, Cherries fans, and hello to all of our friends from Arsenal as well. And thank you for joining us for the first final whistle here on the channel. Now, please do hit like, subscribe, and the bell button below. It helps the channel to grow. I do already have some special guests in the house, and this man will need no introduction. And of course, it is the one, the only, Manny Thangadori. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Can't really say the same for the Arsenal actually. But before we get into it, I want to say once again, congratulations to the Cherries. You taught us a lesson in how to play football yesterday, and we just didn't heed it. And I think if there are any Arsenal fans that will be coming on, I think they'll share my opinion that they are very worried about how the season might be starting to peter out. So there are still some games left. It ain't over till it's over. But I'll tell you something. The fat lady is starting to clear her throat.
Well, we shall see, and I'm sure we'll discuss everything about this game. And as you know, I really, really want you to win this title. You deserve it. But, of course, this probably, most definitely has not helped. But we also have another special guest in the house. And welcome to the show, Carl. How are you doing, mate?
Good evening, mate. Thank you for having me on. Much appreciated. Hello, Manny. Long time no see, bruv. Well, at least someone's in a more positive mood. I'm gonna say it's the last 48 hours has been pretty horrendous, shall we say? And I'll try and keep my acid tongue down to a nice low level for the pod. So just to help you out there,
mate. Honestly, we love the raw reactions. Say what you feel. That's what it's all about. And if you do want to have your say, you can get involved. All you have to do is visit the StreamYard link, which is actually in, and it will be on the screen now. There we go. Visit that StreamYard link, and you can get involved in this show. You're more than welcome if you're a Cherries fan, if you're an Arsenal fan, if you just watched the game, in fact, as well. So, yeah, feel free to get involved. And I just want to say hello to both Neil Juncker. How are you doing, mate? And he's put cherries and some love hearts there. What a win it was. And Jamie Keynes has said, evening, Craig, what a win that was yesterday. It's good to get back to winning back-to-back wins at the Emirates. Most definitely. But I tell you what, let's get stuck into this, because I can understand where there's a lot of frustration aimed at Mikel Arteta. I've seen a couple of videos already saying that we are entering the last month of Mikel Arteta's reign at Arsenal. And let's be fair, it wasn't helped by the Man City defeat in the final of the Carabao Cup. Of course, there was the defeat in the FA Cup against Southampton, and then this. I'm going to open it up to whoever wants to go first, but are we actually seeing, if there is not this title, the last month of Mikel Arteta's reign at the Emirates?
Carl, guess first.
So you bring the League Cup final into the equation, first of all, and I think everyone had the fork in the road type of scenario where if we won that League Cup, it will probably give us a springboard to the rest of the season, might push us on to finish off because you'll have the confidence, you'll have the momentum then. But because we lost it, I made the comment of we will now find out how much mentality, how strong we are as a unit to want to push on for the rest of the season now. And we had our first opportunity against Southampton the following, after the international break, and we completely folded against Southampton. Okay, we got the win over Sporting, but that was literally the equivalent of pulling out a wisdom tooth out. Big up to your sponsor, by the way. And that didn't go particularly great. We won the game outside. Did you know that is our first for the last 6 years? That's our first win in April in all competitions. It's embarrassing. And then what we saw yesterday was, the manager glossing over on his press conference about saying, have an early breakfast, bring your lunch, bring your dinner, all that. Should have bought painkillers, mate, because that was painful to watch. On the field, it was tragic. Not taking nothing away from Bournemouth. I mean, you perform. That was you're probably one of very few teams in the Premier League that play actually a nice brand of football, and it's actually really nice to watch. Alex Scott completely ran us over in the midfield, and this Kroupi guy, you've got a stud on your hands. You've got an absolute stud on your hands. Not to mention as well, you're the Brazilian, was it Raiden? His name is Rayan. I rate him very, very highly. But we just got completely overwhelmed in that game. And you can just, Manny, when we watch Arsenal play, right? When we see us sit back all the time, it's like the opposition is going to score against us at some point because you can't just keep soaking up the pressure like this. And it happened due to incompetence as well of not looking behind you for the last man. Ben White has done this 2 games in a row now. He did it at Southampton, and then he decides to do it again against Bournemouth. Now, overall, some of our players are injured. We're not going to sugarcoat it here. They have got injuries. We have got knocks, but this is not due to the fact that it's one injury and then we're just trying to rush them back. It's the fact this manager his idea of what an injured player is completely different to say what Thomas Tuchel thinks an injury is. With Arteta is if you can breathe or you're still walking, then you can play. Yeah. Whereas Tuchel was like, the minute you got a slight knock in your knee or you got a slight tweak of the ankle or a slight tweak of the hamstring, it'll send you back on the plane straight and send you straight home. The fundamental difference is we're getting absolutely ravished with injuries. This is not an excuse. It's just an appalling way of how we've gone about things. And now we're at this point now where City won comfortably against Chelsea in the end. Okay, the first half was a little bit weak on their side, and then the second half, I think Pep Guardiola threatened to freaking destroy every single one of their phones if you didn't win the game, and they ended up scoring 3 goals in 25 minutes. Now they look at it now with 6 games to go. Well, they've got an extra game. They've got a game in hand. They're 6 points behind us. They play us next Sunday, which, by the way, I think every single Arsenal fan should be absolutely bricking it, because this Man City team are very capable of beating anybody on their day. And we have not beaten Man City at the Etihad since 2015, I believe. It's been a long time, and we're expected to go there now. Even if
Yeah.
we get the job done against Sporting, that's not going to be enough momentum to go into that Man City game. It really, really isn't. And the way City have started to kick on after that League Cup final, they're looking good. They are looking good. But listen, credit to Bournemouth. You deserved all 3 points in that game. We're not. I'm not going to try and defend. I can't defend my team on this one. We were flipping awful from start to finish.
Manny, you've heard what Carl said there. Do you echo, his words? And like I say, I do want, and I said it to Cecil as well when he come on for the preview show. I want you guys to go and win this Premier League. I want you to go and win it. But although okay, I was always wanting us to win yesterday. There is cracks forming, isn't there?
The cracks have formed and they're getting wider. And our dear friend Mr. Brooks has pretty much got it spot on.
Mm-hmm.
And I did mention this backstage. I also want to take this opportunity to apologize for the conduct of several of our fans. I think Carl might probably have noticed it because it was partially all the rage on Twitter.
Yeah.
Where, there were some members of the Bournemouth press gallery that were sitting in a part of the Emirates covering the game. And I do believe, if memory serves me right, when Alex Scott scored that fine goal, which proved to be the winner, they were celebrating, and a group of Arsenal fans were shouting at them and abusing them and giving them all sorts of misery for, celebrating, saying you're being disrespectful and all that rubbish. I mean, these guys from the Bournemouth press, these guys and girls, I should say, these folks, are also at heart Bournemouth fans, and they do understand how, momentous it would be to score at the Emirates and get a win for the team. And so for the fans to do that, I mean, I can understand that maybe, they were frustrated that after all the talk of how they were supposed to have an early breakfast and bring their afternoon dinner to the game, they were, quite frustrated. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised that the Emirates Stadium would allow people to bring food and drink from outside to the game, especially given... Yeah, so because, I mean, at halftime, obviously, you've got the refreshment counter or the concession stand or whatever you call it, where you get some overpriced food and drink. So Arsenal would never have allowed people to bring their dinner, so to speak, or their lunch. But that frustration was no excuse for the way they behaved, and it was just absolutely appalling. And maybe they were starting to show some signs of cracking too, because they know, with Manchester City having turned it on in the second half to beat Chelsea today, that, the Blue Sharks are circling. And as Nico O'Reilly brilliantly said, they smell blood in the water. And there's another tweet which I quoted and blocked. This idiot, who I won't name, saying, and I quote, "Bournemouth beating Arsenal isn't impressive. It's just embarrassing for the Arsenal. Let's not pretend that Bournemouth did anything special. They're still a bang average side who got lucky against a team that didn't turn up. The biggest win of their season, and they're still not going to finish anywhere. A reality check coming soon." What a disrespectful thing to say about a team that have now beaten us in 3 out of our 4 last games against them. And they played better football. But, this guy is another one who just cannot really accept it. He's a bitter, sore loser, incapable of giving the opposition any credit for a fine win. And with fans like him and fans like those who acted horribly towards the Bournemouth press pack that day, we don't deserve good things this season. And even if, we do manage to win something, I don't think we deserve any credit. I get that there is some tribalism among the fans, basically, but this sort of, boorish behavior is absolutely, out of order. And as Carl said, from the first whistle, you were playing quite brilliantly. Yes, I will accept that Gyökeres was getting some really good, passage down the left. But having said that, Adrian Truffert also ran the show quite brilliantly, and the crosses he was putting in. We used to have a left back like that. You remember him, don't you, Carl? In the recent past.
Is he from Scotland? I believe. Is he from Scotland? Yeah. That was it. Kieran Tierney. That's the one.
Yep. And so he was just one of many people who were quite outstanding yesterday, including Kroupi and also Tavernier doing some really good things. And, you know, what was really amazing was how Jimenez as well, I thought, was outstanding in defense, completely, you know, shut off Gabriel Martinelli. And there was another last-ditch tackle which prevented Mr. Magalhaes from having a chance on goal. And the only problem was whenever he tried to go on those solo runs himself, I'm not too sure he's necessarily a very quick right back. But I can't think of any Cherries player who had a bad game. And especially Petrovic, who is considered to be a bit of a liability, also came up trumps with some fine saves. I think we can all agree, though, that as unfortunate as it might have been, that was a handball against Ryan Christie because, you know, his hand was high up. And, you know, hit it there. It wasn't in a natural position. But then there are people who will say, well, what's he supposed to do? And that just underlines the fact, Craig, that when it comes to these penalty calls, there has to be a type of a set of guidelines as to what would constitute deliberate or accidental handballs and how, you know, referees should interpret the laws. But the problem is these referees just love controversy more than anything else. But again, that penalty was really the only good thing we got out of the game. We weren't able to score in open play. You did twice. And so this in and of itself should be a damning indictment of how poorly we played. And if you take a look at how historically we've done in April, this is supposed to be the penultimate month. Just as the fourth spot kick is always the most important in the first five of a penalty shootout, April is the month where things get crystallized, as it were. And we should have actually wrapped up this league long before. We failed to do that. And so if we do go on to bottle this, heaven forbid, it'll be our own fault. And we have no excuses, especially after putting in such a limp performance like that. And as far as David Raya is concerned, I think he needs to stay humble. All the talk about him being the best goalkeeper in the world has gotten to his head because, frankly, in terms of all-round skills, he's not all that, let me tell you.
He's not.
Well, it was a great day for the Cherries, as you can imagine. We did also do our Dean Court social, and the bottle job tag, you know, did come up. Matt, you know, and to be honest, we both want to see Arsenal win the league, but, you know, and I can completely understand there is that view that Arsenal and Arteta just don't seem to be able to get it across the line. I just want to go into, you know, the lineups, and I'll give my views on the Bournemouth lineup as well shortly after. But was you happy with the lineup that Arteta put out initially? And I just want to bring in Max Dowman because he's a youngster who is a really, really exciting player. You know, and in all honesty, it was a game that probably needed him. You know, Erebesh Yeze as well, a player that I really, really, really rate. And I think personally, if I was an Arsenal fan, I would have expected those two to actually start yesterday. Do you share that view, or do you feel that Arteta got the right team out initially?
Carl, go again, please.
I agree with you regarding of Dowman and Eze. The only thing I gotta say with Eze is that he had just come back from a calf injury. Now, if you've ever watched your basketball before, you've heard the names of the likes of Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum, or from my Boston Celtics. They both had calf injuries and they played from somewhere down the line. They ended up popping their Achilles.
Yes.
So the calf injury is something you can't exactly try and rush back because, you know, that those 4 to 6 weeks out, that could turn into like freaking 9 to 12 months out. That could end a season before it's even started.
Yes.
So I was a little bit worried about with Eze starting. I actually think Dowman should have started in this game. For the only reason why we have to play Sporting on Wednesday. And yes, okay, we might be 1-0 up, but 1-0 is not a safe scoreline to be going into a second leg with. I would have personally have rotated around a bit. What pissed me off if this lineup was the fact Havertz was playing in the 10. Every single time Kai Havertz has played in the 10 or played in midfield, we don't win the game. That game was atrocious. Zubimendi had an awful game, by the way. So did Rice. But Havertz was just making me want to smash up my TV screen. Shout out to Carl Walsh. So yeah, it was shocking to see. Havertz, I have never rated on my old channel. I specifically said this guy, he needs to, he has to get double-digit assists and double-digit goals in order for me to start thinking he is worth the money that we paid for him. And I have been proven right. The same with Madueke. We have spent £130 million across the 6 years Arteta has been here on Chelsea players, ex-Chelsea players. I'm pretty sure there is a clause in his contract that states, if you're going to buy someone, you also have to buy a Chelsea player as well. Because it's getting laughable now. Downward should have started for Madueke. If Eze was fit, I would say, start him instead of Havertz. But even then, the only player who could probably walk off that picture with his head held high really was Lewis Skelly. And he's not a left back. He's predominantly a midfielder. But this manager just says, no, I don't have a position for you in midfield. You're going at left back. But then Hincapié comes in, and then Lewis Skelly now is rotting on the bench. And then they send Ethan and Wembley out on loan because obviously, I've got no use for you. We've got Madueke and I've got Saka. Saka's not going to be the same. He tore his hamstring off the bone and has had it surgically repaired back on. He's not going to be that same player that we saw that lit the freaking Premier League on fire. We're not going to see that ever again. So at some point, you've got to look at that and go, Ethan would have been perfect to sit in the 10 right now. He'd be perfect because he's thriving right now in Marseille on loan.
Yes.
So, it's criminal mismanagement. Criminal mismanagement, and that lineup has everything shown for it. Martinelli, Trossard, I don't know. They stress me out. They both stress me out because either they play okay, they either play good or they play really badly. And it's every way. And I personally feel Martinelli is more of an impact player rather than him starting. If I'm going to be honest with you, because when he came on for Sporting, he actually played really pretty decently when he came off as a cameo appearance for 20 minutes. He was the one who set up Havertz for the only goal.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
So it should have, Trossard really should have started in this game more than anything. But you could just tell, even from you as a Bournemouth fan, you could just see we were sitting back at all these sideways passes. Declan Rice must have passed the ball 50 times. David Raya, the goalkeeper, passed the ball 38 times. Our 5 main players that passed the ball around was either the goalkeeper, the back line, or Declan Rice. No one was pushing that ball forward. That's why Bournemouth was sitting back so comfortably. It's like, you ain't harming us at all. You are not harming us one bit. And as the game wore on, Bournemouth grew more and more into the game. And then in that start of that second half, you just went, right, okay, we're going to pressure these guys and let's see if they crack.
Yeah.
And we cracked. We cracked under the pressure.
I'm just going to come to the comments that are coming in as well. I just want to say hello to Jamie Keynes has said, will Arsenal go to City and play? That's the big question. It's going to be difficult as a cherry. I hope Arsenal beat City.
No chance.
Likewise.
No chance.
Brenny says, big up, gents. Good to see you, Brenny. And of course, I think he's come over from your channel, Carl.
Big up, Brenny, my man.
Good to see him. And also, Bikes Turner 98. You guys deserve to win. We are shit and an inferior club to Tottenham. I wouldn't go that far. Would you go that far?
Well, maybe not. But listen, they've actually won a trophy more recently than us, and not just a Tiffany Halfpenny domestic cup, mind you, a European trophy. And then you have all of these fans saying, oh, we're too good for the Europa League because we qualify for the Champions League on a regular basis. But that's still a trophy that we've never won in our history. We never were able to win under Arteta. I mean, what gives us the right to thumb our noses at this? And then we end up hyping the League Cup final. We then lose that. And then we say, bigger fish to fry. and we aren't even catching the fish. And I would sort of it's funny you talk about the lineup as well. I would also sort of echo those thoughts that Kyle had and say that Lewis Skelly is not a left back by trade. He should be in the midfield. And why he shouldn't be able to come in to the centre of the midfield instead of Zubimendi, I will never know. Because once again, we're seeing a situation where Zubimendi is allowing himself to just get dominated, really. You could say that he started the season quite well, but as teams have found him out, they've realised that, he's a little bit weak more than anything else. And he just doesn't really have the ability to lend that solidity to the midfield that we would need. And if you give someone like Lewis Skelly a chance, who may not defensively be, right up there, but who certainly provides that aggression that we need, it would make a lot more sense. And apart from that, starting Havertz again, there is a guy who Carl and I both know who runs a really ridiculous Arsenal blog, which is nothing but disgusting pro-Arteta propaganda. It's called She Wore Yellow Ribbon. And the recent most article that this guy's written is one which says that we should not be scared to lose our Hale Enders, saying nobody wants to see academy graduates leave, especially those that have shown the potential of Mark Lewis Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri, who, as Carl said, is on loan at Marseille. But to be a success in football, you need to evolve, and Arsenal may have evolved beyond the pair. To evolve into consistent title challenges, we have to look at better than what we have had, including the academy graduates, and that meant the likes of Kai Havertz and Mikel Merino and others coming in. That's not evolution. If you're watching this, you know damn well who you are. I mean, it's all you can see that there's a pattern over here. Basically, I understand, and Carl does too, that youngsters do have to earn their right to play for the club and not simply expect to get there on the basis of their passports or, for which club they played in their youth. But good managers also have the ability to understand that the youth are the ones who provide at least a big part of the core of a very successful team. You only need to take a look at what Paris Saint-Germain did to win the Champions League last season. They got rid of a lot of their superstars. No more of these inflated egos on big salaries, picking up big pay packets every week. We're going to invest in, local French players with some younger talents, and they ended up winning the whole thing. And one of the more experienced players was also given his marching orders at the end of that season and is now playing for Manchester City. So, if we're not able to try to incorporate the best of our youth talent in, especially if in seasons gone by they have shown some great ability, then that is a big failure, really, more than anything else, on Mikel Arteta. And as a Bournemouth fan, Craig, you will know that there have been some youth who have, come through, who have done well to reasonably well, but at least you've also shown some commitment over the years to try to giving your young players a chance and try and giving them more of an opportunity. I get that, maybe we should try to improve the side, but Carl will definitely agree with me that Kai Havertz and Mikel Merino have not improved this club one bit. And especially after some of the, shall we say, sins that Kai committed last season and in seasons gone by, I wouldn't want to see this bloke playing for my club anymore. And he's probably the highest paid player at the club right now. And as for Merino, he pops up with a few goals every now and then as a false nine, but really doesn't do very much after that. So when you have a manager who has a poor talent ID and who doesn't even know how to get the best of his of the youth players that he has, it's just a recipe for disaster. And the lineup was more or less a reflection of that. Lewis Skelly, as Carl mentioned, was probably our best player, but he's not a left back. Martinelli, he started, he kept running and running and running, but he ended up running into Jimenez like a train hitting the buffers. Gyökeres, we know if you give him service, he can score, but he was lacking service. He was making some good runs in and trying to get in behind, but never really was able to do too much more. Ben White, I get that we're also light defensively with Yuri and Timber being out injured, but Ben White should never again play for our club. And if Thomas Tuchel does pick this bloke for England's World Cup squad, I've really lost all respect for the guy, I have to say. So on paper, you could say the lineup should be good enough. But when you have a situation where some players are clearly, not 100% fit and others are just not really doing as well as they should be doing, you're going to be asking for trouble in many ways. And I just think that, we just didn't turn up. We just weren't serious enough. And everything is now coming back to bite us. But, Arteta does have to be given some blame for everything, I would say.
I'm just going to go to the comments again before I give my thoughts on what you've said and also the Cherries lineup. And Bike Stunters 98 has said they won a European Cup. They're going to get relegated and still laugh at our face. Meanwhile, we are trophyless. Well, at the end of the day, hopefully, fingers crossed, Arsenal get their day out in Budapest in a month or so's time, whereas Spurs are likely to be heading to Lincoln City away, so they can let us know how that is. Cool, that was a long time ago we played them, but yeah, Spurs might be able to let everybody know what Lincoln's like. Hey, I jest, but in all honesty, I'll give my views on the Cherries lineup. To be honest, overall, I was happy. The defence picked itself. Of course, Traffair on the left-hand side, fantastic player. Jimenez, on the right. Hill and Senesi in the centre. Alex Scott, Ryan Christie, alongside him. I did think that Tyler Adams might have started this game. Of course, he did come on for Ryan Christie, who I think we made that substitution just at the right time. And then, of course, you got Rayan or Hayan. To be honest, I don't know how it's pronounced properly, so I do apologise. If you're watching Rayan, Tavernier on the left, and then Kroupi just behind Evan Nilsson. That's the only bit that maybe I would change. Evan Nilsson is a player that works hard. He's a battler. He's somebody who's strong, but he's lacking in front of goal. He is not the striker that we really bought in to, thinking, right, this guy's going to get, 20, 30 goals a season. He's not that sort of player at all. What Kroupi is, though, is he is just that. And I've compared Kroupi, and I know that, guys, when I was on Arsenal Fan TV after that first game, where you beat us at the Dean Vitality, Dean Corp, that we always call it, I turned round and I said, Kroupi is the next Thierry Henry. It's just the way he glides past players and controls the ball. I honestly think that he certainly is. And great to see you, Kenny Ken. How you doing, mate?
Hello. Yeah, Manny mentioned it to me earlier. I was just out for a 21st birthday party. So we're all out as a family, and we just got back just now. But I didn't want to tell Manny that I was going to do it, and at 8:00, 9:04, I was going to be late, and my phone ran out of battery. So sorry, Manny. Sorry, guys. But yeah,
don't apologise. Don't apologise. It's a pleasure to have you here, mate.
Your first time on the chat. I've always wanted you to come on here and get to know Craig and everyone else. Yes. So lateness in your case is greatness. Welcome.
No. But it's not intentional lateness. It was just.
Yeah, I know. I know. But
I'm not saying our good friend does it intentionally, but this one was just totally unintentional. But I just want to start by saying, respect to Bournemouth. They played. They stuck to their principles, and they won the right way. They didn't try to be what they weren't. They didn't shithouse. They didn't put men behind the ball. They played attacking, passing football. Played out from the back. Won their duels. They had two forwards who held the ball up, worked our defenders, and won comfortably. For my life, won comfortably. And I've got nothing but respect for players, considering they've sold their best players. And they've had injuries to most of their defence. Can't take more than that.
It's been, Kenny Ken, you've explained that perfectly. We lost Dean Howson, we lost Kirkes. Well, Zabania as well. We lost most of our defence, during the summer, and I'm impressed how Iriola's kept things going. I'm quite happy with the lineup. And actually, you make a very, very good point about the attackers, because Evan Nielsen has come under a lot of stick. Manny, you'll know this from our faithful, because he isn't an out and out goal scorer, but he does that hard work. Um, there's people that have said that he's not good enough for the club. I don't believe that, but I would like to see. And do you think it would work, Manny? You know how, especially those two players work. Do you think it could work, Kroupi in front of Evan Nilsson as a permanent fixture?
It's hard to say, Craig, and let's bear in mind that the last time you beat us at the Emirates, I believe it was Evan Nilsson who scored the winner. So,
Yes.
I'm glad Kenny's here because he's also a wonderful impartial judge on all of this. Look, he started off quite well, but I think it could very well be the case that maybe, defenses have started to figure him out a little bit, because for a traditional out-and-out striker, you want him to be a little bit tall, a little bit like how Dominic Solanke was for you lot and how brilliantly he did. And that secured him a move to Tottenham Hotspur, where he's now experiencing the ups and downs of being a Europa League champion, now potentially being relegated. Evan Nilsson isn't really a short striker. You could say he's a little bit like a tall striker. You could say he's a little bit more like Gabby Jesus for us. And when he joined our club, and you see Kenny nodding his head, he was also scoring. But the thing is that for a guy like Evan Nilsson, I would say that his the way he's better suited to play would sort of be to try to get into position and sort of try and make sure that he times it perfectly. And there was an incident where, David Raya tried to attempt a ridiculous clearance. He shanked it completely and fell to Evan Nilsson's path. But because it came at him rather quickly, he didn't have the time to compose himself. And the chance ended up begging. But had he composed himself, controlled that ball, he'd have had an empty net at which to shoot, and Raya would have been completely embarrassed, and he would have been a laughingstock. But there is a part of me that thinks that he just needs to be given the confidence to trust himself and trust his game. And bear in mind, the one-time Arsenal target, George Arthur Watkins at Aston Villa, he was going through a bad patch, but now he started to score again. I think there are some players who just need to be given that little bit of confidence and sort of trust in themselves. Maybe you could say that you could have a situation where if Kroupi, for example, starts in the was he playing in the 10 yesterday? I don't quite remember, because I think he had
just behind, yeah.
Okay, so if you were to play a 4-4-2, which I don't think Iriola will do, obviously Kroupi and Evan Nilsson will start together, but you could possibly have a situation where you try and interchange things a little bit and maybe see how that works. And maybe, Kenny, you can shed some light on this now.
Well, the thing is that when you talk about Evan Nilsson, he's just an epitome of the modern footballer. The modern player, unfortunately, striker, doesn't exist anymore. There is no such thing as a striker. What a striker's first job is actually to be part of the first line of defence, the first press, the work rate. Enable your team in order to get up the pitch, hold the ball up, and which he did really well, by the way. And the same with Kroupi, and that's his main kind of strength. Obviously, when strikers first come to the club, who are not particularly out-and-out strikers, they will come with the goals. But then when they settle in the side, they'll do more for the team. Evan Nilsson's more, like I said, beneficial to Bournemouth when he does the work rate and he leaves. You think about it, if he wasn't working hard, Kroupi wouldn't be in those situations where he does get in those chances and put the goal in.
Yeah.
You think about Evan Nilsson's presence. He worked, Gabriel and Saliba. He created the first goal. You think about it, yeah. It was a cross by Trophy, and it came off Gabriel, and then it went straight to Kroupi. But at the end of the day, that goal, the first goal, you think about it, what we didn't do, but what Bournemouth did. Madueke fell asleep, and there was actually an incident in that match. Mick Arteta was right in front of me. There was a break in play. He was telling Madueke where to be, and then within a minute, he's gone walkies. He's left the overlap. Trophy puts that cross in. Ben White, who can't defend to save his life anyway, right back. What happens is that Saliba gets attracted, gets occupied. Gabriel has to do what Saliba normally does and try and help Ben White. Makes a good clearance, but the spare man is now Kroupi because two defenders are being dragged away. Dragged away. Evan Nilsson's occupied Saliba. Gabriel's had to try and cover. Boom. Kroupi empty net. And that but that doesn't happen if Evan Nilsson ain't doing his due diligence and he isn't holding the ball up. And that's the thing. You think about the second goal as well. Again, Alex Scott's goal doesn't happen if you're not pressing from the front and forcing errors. And then when the ball comes, your force ain't holding the ball up. Held the ball up. The Eze, who's meant to be following Alex Scott, don't follow him. Alex Scott, free shot, has time to pick his spot, 2-1. And that's the thing. All those goals you scored doesn't happen without the work rate of Evan Nilsson making those sort of spaces, and Kroupi is doing it as well. And that's how you're able to control the game and get your pass off. If the ball kept on coming back, you're under pressure. What Bournemouth done is that they saw a blueprint to beat Arsenal, and that all started from Sunderland, even though they got a draw. Be organised, good on the ball, be able to win your duels physically, and then have a hard-working striker who can hold the ball up and get people up the field. You beat Arsenal easy, and the tempo has to be right. If it's slow, like what Porto did, it's easy. We would be comfortable. But what you did, you knew when to slow down the tempo, but when you're in attack, you moved. That's that, and that's why you deserved your win.
Do you know what, Kenny Ken? That is a great explanation as well of how important Evan Nilsson is for this side, because there has been a lot of criticism from the fan base about him, but it is that work that he does, how he occupies other players. That Trafford cross was pinpoint perfect. It was absolutely brilliant cross, and he's been an absolutely outstanding signing for us. But Evan Nilsson keeping Gabriel occupied then meant Kroupi, and to be honest, when Kroupi's in that position, he wasn't gonna miss. Is there anybody else apart from Ben White that you do feel, Carl? I'll come to you first, and then Manny, please give your thoughts on this as well. Is there anybody else who you think could have done a lot better and prevented that first goal?
What's up?
I think you're looking back. I mean, when I did my review on my show yesterday, I clipped a part of the scene where the goal started out, where Madueke just went missing, and Ben White was also looking in the same direction as the midfielder, not looking back behind them where Tavernier was. Didn't check behind him, which is the same mistake as we already said that Ben White made in the Southampton game, not checking behind him to see if there was another man behind him, and that's how he conceded. But you can't let players drag you out. That's what you see. That's what you see in basketball with what they call the pick and roll. That's what you see all the time. That goal, it could have very easily have been sort of if people who actually just stuck to their actual job, but that absolutely never occurred. You can't really blame the centre half. You can't really blame Gabriel really, because he tried, but it deflected off him. So he was just a sitting duck at that point. But that goal could have very easily have been nullified, really, and so could the second one as well. The fact we just sat off. Alex Scott all the way through, then he had the shot. That was just embarrassing. No one attempted to close him down at all. I think I'm more annoyed at the second goal winning than the first, because the first goal could have been stopped. The second one was just just close him down.
Yeah,
cut off his avenues.
Do you know what? Actually, a very, very, very good point. I did expect some sort of challenge, some sort of, Alex Scott did fantastically well to get in that position, but I'm surprised, A, that he was given so much time, and B, was able to make that shot pretty much unchallenged, really. In all honesty, Manny, come over to yourself. He was pretty much unchallenged for that second goal, wasn't he?
He was, and the worst part is that the more often you see that, Craig, the more angry that you are, especially when you consider just how, he was allowed to sort of come through. It was just ugly in many ways, and this is another reason why we've been screaming out loud that Zubimendi is just not really going to be that person who will end that bite in the midfield. And especially, I love how Kenny Kent's nodding at everything I'm saying, even if some of it may not be correct in any ways. We had a guy before Zubimendi came in who knew how to lend that sort of bite in the midfield, and especially when you talk about that defensive pivot where Alex Scott was playing. And now there's a quote in the chat saying that maybe he should be in the England team. Maybe if Tuchel were at the Emirates and looking at him, he'd see there might be a bit of a gem there. But you want to have your defensive midfielders in that pivot to have the ability to just have that aggression and be able to snuff those attacks more than anything else. And we had a guy before Zubimendi from Ghana, I believe, who was a past master at being able to keep the engine running, but also knew how to be aggressive and also have that tackle to break up those attacks when we needed. With Zubimendi, we're not getting that, and it's just an ill-fitting combination. Now, let's say you put someone like a Lewis Skelly in to partner Rice, for instance. This guy definitely is a lot more assured on the ball, and he certainly can run forward. And he's also not the type of person to, have people go past him almost easily. I think there was an instance where, he got sent off for a pretty poor tackle, and I think it was Matt Doherty at Molineux, where he was adjudged to have, went in with the studs on Doherty's Achilles. Due to some uproar, I think that was overturned. But at least with Skelly coming into the midfield and having someone else at left back, Skelly is free to do whatever he wants, but he has those qualities that Zubimendi doesn't have. And we've seen time and again this season Zubimendi just be put under pressure and be sort of made to fold like, a cheap deck chair more than anything else. And that's not really the type of person you'd want to have playing in that defensive midfield pivot, at least not in that sort of a role where you need someone to be more defensive and be on it defensively and make sure that he is able to stop those attacks. So I just think, again, as long as we start Zubimendi in that defensive midfield pivot, we're always going to be weak. And teams like Bournemouth, bear in mind, we've got to play City, Newcastle, even Fulham. Any teams that, beef up their midfield will probably end up having a field day against us. And defensively, as far as we're concerned, we just need to replace Ben White ASAP because I think he's, past his sell-by date. And I think, Kenny, we'll come to you now. Maybe you can concur with what I'm saying.
Well, first and foremost, you've got to remember one thing, is that the Zubimendi is learning on the job. And Zubimendi wasn't bought to play the same way as Thomas Partey. He was bought to actually elevate us in terms of our play in Europe and in terms of big games. Thomas Partey is our best player, but was injury prone, plus obviously the age as well. But the thing with Zubimendi, continental number sixes run the game. They're the boss in midfield. They technically, start the creative engine. They're not the creators as such, but they start the creative, i.e. give the ball and then move the ball forward, keep it ticking over. But they have to dictate the tempo of the game. That was why Zubimendi was bought. There were times when he was able to do it, but he's found himself doing other jobs, like in the defence area and lending himself a bit of goals. But he hasn't really been that kind of player. And because he's now knackered out of form, Declan Rice, who was playing his best football as number 8, is now playing a double pivot, which in turn, what happens, right, is that you knew there was massive problems, because when Arteta played his hand, he brought on three attack-minded forward players. So he brought on Eza, he brought on Trossard from Martinelli, was ineffective, and he's brought Max Dowman. Now, Bournemouth had a field day, because with Madueke and Martinelli, there's more pace, but they were trying to stop the crosses coming in from the fullbacks. You know, like obviously you had Jimenez, who was bloody brilliant, by the way. Where you found him, I don't know. And then
Yeah, he's quality.
you've got Troffey as well, where you found him, and they're going up and up, but they're getting policed. You know, Miles Lewis Skelly is not great defensively, got protection. Ben White protection. Now, by bringing those guys on, he's going to need Zubimendi to be on the ball, moving the ball, getting the ball ticking over, getting Eze into the game. But it didn't happen because the way Declan Rice is playing, he's running on empty, he's playing double pivot. Zubimendi's not getting the ball. Bournemouth can try and possession. And then what's happened? The attack-minded players can't go back and help our centre halves, help our fullbacks. So they're getting exposed. And the thing with Benjamin White is that Benjamin White, despite the praise he's been given, Benjamin White can't defend as a fullback. Even in 22, 23 and 23, 24, if he played against an inverted forward with quick feet and with pace, he was done. Every time when Benjamin White plays, it's a risk defensively because Saliba has to go and help his mate out. And then what will happen if you bypass both of them? There's always Gabriel has to mark two players. We're getting away with that a lot in 22, 23 until we played your guys, Bournemouth, when you should have beaten us and we beat you 3-2. And that's when the rot set in. But it was always down the Benjamin White side. And then obviously this year after where he had his best football, but it was always that ugly head. Now, if you've got Timber playing, Timber, who's better defensively and quicker than Benjamin White, he can cover that ground. He doesn't really need the sort of protection. So when we're in a sort of like a midfield defensive line, Saliba thinks, I don't have to help Timber because Timber doesn't get beaten one-on-one. He's got quick feet. He's quick. I can make ourselves look defensively. You look at Arsenal when we had Calafiori and Timber as fullbacks, we're hard to break down. The minute Calafiori gets injured, Kunkape's done a good job. When Benjamin White comes in, cup final against Man City, when the game settled down and Man City got control, it was a mess. You needed two minders, and that's the thing with Benjamin White is that defensively I've never been happy. But now the fact that he's had injuries, he can't overlap, and he can't give you a run of games as a deputy. So yeah, he's definitely got to go. He's definitely got to go. Why England brought him back was a travesty. I mean, he refused to play for his country. And then
it's weird, isn't it?
With pathetic Arsenal fans who just got this kind of thing, I've got to protect their own, we're defending him. Let's not forget, if Benjamin White played for another club, these Arsenal fans would be condemning him. I repeat, Benjamin White refused to play for his country during a tournament that England were trying to win, and he left his country in a lurch. The fact is that he had to explain himself to his teammates when he had the recent get-together to clear the air. If Benjamin White didn't do anything wrong, why was he required to have a clear the air with his teammates, including the Arsenal ones? And then when they had to clear the air, all of them were sent home. You can't get someone to have clear the air talks with the team if he hadn't done anything wrong. He should never play for England. Don't care who he plays for Arsenal. I'm an England fan. You let down your country, then you never play again.
I agree with that. And believe it or not, Ben White is actually from Poole, which is the next town over from Bournemouth that everybody will know. I think he let himself down, not sorting that problem out. And don't get me wrong, there was probably a problem there in the background with, Gareth Southgate's assistant. But at the same time, that situation could have been solved there and then, but instead it was allowed to fester and get worse. And yeah, it's a shock for me that he's been allowed back in to the England setup, and he shouldn't be. And I do agree with you on those points as well. Particularly because we do play that high press, which you saw, when he was pressed, he was making mistakes in that back line. So yeah, if there was one way we was always going to go, it was towards Ben White, and that's player that we was always going to put that bit of pressure on. I'm just going to quickly run through these comments as well, just very quickly, because I've
And that's an example, Craig, if I might just cut in, that's an example of how Iriola does what Arteta fails to do, and that is do his homework. And there's another comment there saying easily he's the better manager from the Basque region. Iriola and Arteta were good childhood mates back in the day. But then, good managers, obviously, they study the opposition very well, and that is the comment right there. They study the opposition, look for weaknesses, and as Kenny pretty much said, they were always going to target Ben White on that side. And, even Madueke, who some misguided people say is an upgrade on Ethan Nwaneri because he has raw pace, I think he's just a slimmer version of Adama Traore. He runs all the livelong day, but he can't put it across to save his life. And the less said about his defensive abilities, the better.
I just want to say hello to Shane Gooner. Thank you so much for joining us, mate. And Gooner_SE. I don't know why YouTube have changed it. So unfortunately, they've changed it all to the handles rather than actually changing it to the names, which used to appear beforehand. So I do apologise if I'm referring to you by your handles. Mr. B for Life 182. Alex Scott should be in the England team. He is quality. I think Alex Scott believes that as well. Hence the reason for his celebration. I think he should be. Don't you guys? I think Alex Scott should get the nod, and I was incredibly impressed with him yesterday. I think that he caused, all sorts of problems in that centre of the park. I was a little bit surprised, like I say, that Christie was picked over Adams. But actually, I think Iriola made the right decision. But Alex Scott is something else, and I think he deserved his man of the match. I think that, his battles with Rice and Zubamendi were good. He was very, very solid on that perspective. What did you make of those battles in the centre, guys?
Kenny, go first, please.
Well, I think that the situation is that for the time being, Declan Rice is running empty. He isn't that high energy midfielder that we saw early in the season. And Zubamendi's not playing that kind of trying to control the game in terms of to control our tempo. That's not happening anymore. We're a team that is completely running out of ideas, but physically we're done. We've got players who are either injured, come back from injury pretty quickly, which means they're not 100% fit, but necessity means they play. What Bournemouth did really well is that they took the game to us. It wasn't a case like when you play Arsenal, where it's like teams sit back for 30 minutes and then they have a go. Bournemouth made Declan Rice run around for 90 minutes. They made Zubamendi run around for 90 minutes, which a lot of teams don't do because they're not brave to. You have to be brave to play ball the way Bournemouth does, especially away from home. The way they were playing out the back, the way they were dictating the game. Winning, but you know what Bournemouth did and why they won the midfield battle? It's because they won their duels. It's the second balls. They made Arsenal make mistakes. Even when Bournemouth, like I said, played in the hospital passes, they won the hospital pass because they were sharper. What I was saying on a podcast last week, that Arsenal's biggest problem is because we're running empty. We've got players who are not fully fit. We're going to be playing teams that play once a week. They're going to be fresher. They're going to have the required rest because especially when you get to April, you've got to be fresh. No good playing. It's exciting for the fans to be in the League Cup, the Champions League, the FA Cup still in the league. You play all those games in a week. Trust me, it was telling you. Bournemouth recognises, Ariola recognised. Was he at Southampton last week?
He was, yes. He went to the Southampton game. He studies teams. He does study teams.
If he studied Arsenal, he would have seen players who are basically walking. He would have seen Declan Rice, who needs to get more air in his lungs, who basically isn't works. He saw Man City work him. He wasn't required against Southampton, but the same mantra. He knows that we're running empty, and that's why Bournemouth were able to win the ball. the tempo of their passing was pretty quick when needs to be. They never slowed it down like Sporting Lisboa. And that's how you win your battles. But you've got to win your duels as well. Be prepared to get your stuck in. The amount of professional, like I said, fouls you're giving, in terms of like, let's take one for the team. Our fans are going absolutely berserk at your midfielders, the way you're just making little fouls to just slow the game down, break the tempo up, and then start again, getting back in the position and get organised. They'll go, "Oh, you're going to book him?" I thought it was brilliant, but our fans were going absolutely mad because they could see what you lot were doing. Whenever you try to slow the tempo down, you weren't exactly doing it by the usual methods, getting back the goalkeeper. Sometimes you were. You looked at the referee Oliver, and you know Oliver wants the game to flow, and you played it really well. But again, Declan Rice, you make him run for 90 minutes, especially when he's not his best. You win the midfield battle. How many times did Declan Rice come up the field during the game? A few times.
Yeah.
Other times he couldn't because he didn't have any energy. Because he's playing within himself. That's when you got to pounce. Zubimendi again is running empty. And then when you get his replacements in, Eza was required to lend himself into the attacking part of the field. But what you guys did very well, you didn't give him any good ball. You kept the ball pretty well. You won. He's had to go back and win the ball. And whenever you try to make that forwards pass, Dowman and Trossard had two players on them. Complete shutout.
Absolutely. Carl.
Overall, look, Alex Scott had a phenomenal game. To get into the England squad, he's gonna have to do these sorts of performances for the rest of the season and then impress in like the three. What do England have? Usually 2 or 3 friendlies before the World Cup. Usually, so he's gonna have to really impress along that way. At best, I think he will get into the squad, but I'm a bit pessimistic of Scott. I think he's going to end up being a squad player rather than I don't think you will see him play in the English. I mean, Tuchel might change his tune and say, "No, I'm playing Scott in there," which will surprise everyone except for Bournemouth fans, really. But overall, the game was just not good enough. And Kenny mentioned about how Declan Rice has just got no energy in that self. And is that partly the reason as well why we're taking 60 seconds every single time to take a set piece? Because he can't get over to the corner or he can't get to the free kick early enough. It's just been a headache. And that game just summed up what we already knew about this team already, about this manager. When I was watching that Southampton game, I didn't realize because I was too busy screaming and shouting. But when you've mentioned that Areola was in Southampton, I'm like, yeah, that's not surprising. That's not surprising at all. Areola is a very good tactical manager. He is, and he's cutting his teeth at Bournemouth, and he's doing an absolute phenomenal job, as far as I'm concerned. But regarding of us, Ben White can only play 2 games at a time before he crystallizes into glass again. And he's just had this issue. He's just had this issue for a long, long while. We keep saying that, Madueke's just, again, another Chelsea player we didn't really want. We got him anyway. But I've mentioned this on previous shows. If we hadn't got Madueke and we hadn't signed Christian Norgard, who by the way has had like 56 minutes coming off the bench and has made 9 starts in all competitions all season, instead of getting Madueke and Norgard, you could have actually bought Kvaratskhelia, who was about 65 million euro last season, and you could have moved Lewis Skelly into the midfield. Would that be more of a better solution than paying for Madueke, who's just a speed merchant and runs the ball out, and Norgard, which we barely ever see? It's criminal malpractice throughout. And I'm fed up with it. Absolutely fed up with the way this team is just struggling to perform but it's not due to the fact that we can't. It's done by choice. At some point, Arteta was just bouncing around on the touchline like freaking Zebedee on crack. And I'm like, what? And I'm just like, just sit the fuck. I'm sure someone in the back end of the stands was saying, sit the F down. Just sit down, because what he's doing, bouncing around and giving all these signals and so on, it's not just making the players scared, it's making the fans nervous as well. Because it's like, just sit down, just let them play. And if there's an issue, then go up to, or at least when there's a stoppage in play, call the captain over and say, well, this is what we need to do now because we're sort of struggling here. He's shouting and hollering around on the touchline. He's been doing this forever. I just lose words over this team. I lose words over this football club. It's just I hate it. And to make matters worse, this was the game that we had to win. So in order, if we go to City next Sunday, a draw might be more than enough. Now a draw's not enough. And the trickle-down effect and the snowball effect officially started after the Southampton game. After that Southampton FA Cup loss. Because, unless there's a miracle and everyone gets back to full fit health, being fully fit and healthy again, I don't know where we go from this. Because every month in April since 2021, we've only won one game. And that was the Sporting game in the week. Every single game we've either lost or drawn. I think, what was the record? I think it was something like 1 win, 6 draws, and 13 losses in the month of April from 2021 to right up till now. And people will say, oh yeah, but it's the squad. Well, it can't be the squad, because in 2021 we had a much different squad. So rule out the common denominator here. And you can see everyone getting absolutely mad on social media. You can see everyone getting mad about it.
It's a very, very, very good point you've made there, Carl. And it's something that I spoke to Cecil on the preview about. I've spoken to you before about this, Manny, is Arteta's management of that side. And Kenny, you rightly said, Rice is completely running on empty. You've got a fresh Alex Scott. You've got Ryan Christie, who, is one of the older players in the squad, but still is a right battler. I'm surprised Tyler Adams didn't start the game, but at the end of the day, we had that substitution in our offing. Manny, is this all down to the team management from Arteta? Because like Steve, Mr. B for life, and of course he's a Brentford fan. We never beat Brentford. I don't know what it is. He's rightly said that as well. Do you feel that Arteta's management of this whole squad has been completely and utterly incorrect? Why you can't? And Carl, I didn't realise it was as bad as that. 1 defeat. One win.
1 win out of
April.
20. One win out of 20 in all games.
Let's be honest, this is Arsenal Football Club. You should be, winning a lot more than that in a month of April, which is the time when the pressure's on and you need to get results over the line. This is failing?
He is absolutely failing, and Carl and Kenny can definitely agree with me on that. And, Carl also pretty much nailed it perfectly when he said, what was the point of getting someone like Christian Norgard if you're not going to give him anywhere near enough game time in the Premiership, when that is the competition where, he'll be the most needed? And the thing about playing in Premiership is, yes, you play 38 games a season. So, you can be forgiven if you lose one game. You lose one game 1 week, you come back the next week. Unless, of course, you come to the end of the season where every single performance is crucial. And this defeat that we've suffered against you lot has now set us back, where many people are starting to think that City are coming into form at the right time, like they always do, and they could overtake us. And, there's no point in having a really big squad of players and having people saying that the squad is amazing. And, both of our guests will agree that all talk about our squad being amazing is absolute rubbish, because it's not so much quality, it's absolute filler. But if you aren't able to manage your squad effectively to the point that you are giving your players adequate rest and trusting some players to play in certain games where they will be needed, that is a failure on your part. And there's a reason why Rice is now overcooked, pun intended. Zubamendi is also not really feeling that good. But then this should have been the opportunity, at least earlier in the season, to sense that your players are not sort of running on empty, and give them rest whenever they need to be given rest. And the best managers in history have that sixth sense to know when certain players need to be rested and rotated. Alex Ferguson was definitely one such manager. Yep. You would never catch him playing certain players for a sustained period of time. And there is no way that he would even consider playing players who are, just not 100% fit. And for all of the criticism of Unai Emery, where he's also not too different from Arteta, it has to be said, in terms of, not being able to use the squad adequately. When he sees that certain players are not 100% fit, at least he takes them out of the firing line and doesn't consider playing them. But with Arteta, you're not seeing that. And you have all of this misplaced trust on a certain core of players who are your starting 11. But when they start to break down and get injured, and Carl also mentioned that Bukayo Saka had a horrific hamstring injury and had to have it, I think, stitched back onto his bone, I think, or something like that. It is an indictment on the manager. And one thing which I always say, Craig, and I think I'll pass it to our guests, whoever wants to go first, is if you give a bad carpenter a set of good tools, he's still gonna muck everything up and do a bad job, because he just doesn't know how to handle his players. He doesn't even know when certain players need to be rested, when they need to play. I just don't even think that he has any faith in some of the players he wants, but he just buys them so that they can act as filler. And in some cases, when we brought Kepa Arrizabalaga, who actually spent last season with you lot and was a part of the team that did the double over us, we gave him the cup competitions, and he didn't really cover himself in glory in the League Cup final. And against Southampton, although he couldn't be blamed, he also didn't, do enough to ensure that he was worthy of being our second goalkeeper. So it's like, he doesn't even know which players should be trusted. He doesn't know which can't be trusted. He doesn't know how to handle some of the better players in the team. And everything is just coming home to roost as we end up winning hardly anything. I'm hopeful that somehow we can just finally, stutter over the line. But the way things are going, patterns and momentum tell us everything. And I don't see things getting better.
You have to beat Man City. You have to beat Man City. There's no ifs or buts, really.
Absolutely.
It's still, as I said when I returned back to my channel, it's legal bust from that one point forward after the League Cup defeat. I'm on X most of the time, and I see a lot of it's been a cesspool over the last couple of days. There was one tweet that caught my eye, and it was basically someone saying that my response was, it's not about having Arteta sacked. He's done a good job. In every single walk of life, people could take the teams that they work with to a certain level. Sometimes that is the level that they can attain. For me, I wonder whether the title challenger is the maximum level Arteta is able to achieve right now. And because of that, bringing a new manager to the team that might help the team reach the next level that the current manager can't. There are all forms of managers, players in any sort of sport that can only get to a certain level, and then they can't get you over the top. I'll give you a prime example. A quarterback in the NFL by the name of Kirk Cousins, very good quarterback, but can only take you so far. Same with James Harden in the NBA, very good player, but he's only going to take you so far.
Add Baker Mayfield from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the list, if you like.
Or leave Baker alone, will you? Leave Baker alone. I think that sums up everything now, where Arteta is, if he doesn't win anything this season, he has literally hit his ceiling of what he's capable to do. The only way you'll get above and beyond that is, taking yourself out of the limelight, understanding what you did right, understanding what you did wrong, learning from it, and then in your next job, when you will get hired, maybe you put that into practice and you'll see if you've learned from your mistakes or not. because that's the epitome of a very good coach. You learn from your mistakes from the first job you was in. You know, it happens to us when we had our first job. When we all had our first job, we all did some things terribly wrong and so on. The second go around, we had another job. It actually, you know what? I didn't do this. It worked a lot better.
No,
Kenny.
I second what you said, Carl, about, you know, first and foremost, you know, Mikel Arteta. You know, what you said was really true. The team can go places. And when people say he's taken it as far as the team can go, no, he's taken it as far as he can go. The fact is that when you talk about our record in April, 1 victory in 6 years in April, that's under his management. We've had similar situations. You go to 21-22, we're going for that top 4. Southampton was one of the sides that turned us over. It was actually Southampton first, Crystal Palace, and then Brighton, and then somehow we beat Chelsea 4-2 at the Bridge and beat Man United, beat Leeds. Then we played Tottenham and Newcastle, and that was it. That was where we done it. And then 22-23, it was actually, even though we beat Bournemouth 3-2, that was when the rot set in, because we started letting in goals. Teams were able to get bodies forward and beat us. Eventually, those narrow wins turned into draws, and those draws turned into defeats. 23-24, one mistake against Villa, gone. But he went on a good run. But let's not forget the run before that. And then 25 was a no-show as a season. Then this season, it's actually got similarities or parallels with 22-23. Easter Sunday, we drew Liverpool to go 8 points ahead. Man City had a game in hand. Man City won the game in hand, beat Arsenal. We started drawing games. They turned an 8-point deficit, albeit the game in hand, into a 4 points plus in their favour when they won the league. Would it be deja vu where Man City are 9 points behind Arsenal, albeit the game in hand? Are they going to do what they did in 22-23, turn a 9-point deficit into a 3-point plus side in order to win the league? The majority of fans in the country think so. A lot of Arsenal fans yesterday were in the ground, said the league's done. The league's done. My brother said it. He didn't go to the game, but my friend said it, Mo. My friend Hoggy said it. And that's a consensus opinion. We've seen this movie before. We've seen the script. We know the characters. We know this team. But the difference is this team's running empty. You saw his press conference. It was a disgrace. Yeah. He was basically saying he can't wait to get the players back. And he was saying that the players who play need to give more. He's basically told those players who play for him that they're useless, they're crap, and that he can't wait to get those players in. But also the message he's sending is that he doesn't care what condition Timber's in, Saka's in. He's going to just get on the park. And then what will happen? Tim will get savaged, so is Saka, and it'll be all to no avail. Mikel Arteta's biggest weakness is that he hasn't learned from his inexperience. You'd have thought after 7 years he will know how to motivate his second string. He will know how to have a plan B. But his plan B is make it up as you go along. You really have to see the game at Southampton. There was no patterns of play. There was no playing. It was a second-tier team. We'll beat them because we won all games. We beat Portsmouth. We beat Wigan, beat Mansfield, who gave us a game, and then we thought it was suffice against Southampton, not knowing the injuries and the fact that you have to have a plan because Southampton are in good form, and they're gonna fancy the day out. You know, it's a good shop window for all their players, and that's where Mikel Arteta is at this moment of time. There are doubts about him. And look at him; he looks old. He looks like a ghost. He looked like a ghost in a Carabao Cup final. He looked like a ghost against Southampton. You know, he was happier when we nicked the game against Sporting. Let's face it, we nicked it, but we were under the cosh. And then yesterday, he looks like a ghost. The pressure on him is unbearable. There are talks from Arsenal fans. Even if he wins the league this season, they still want him to go on the basis that, thank you, mate, we now want to take this over to dominate. I mean, Tim Sherwood's point that if Arsenal win the league, they're going to dominate. He must be off his head. He must be off his head.
You thought Liverpool's title defense was bad. What Arsenal will go hold our beer.
Tim Sherwood could go. His dad's an Arsenal season ticket holder. Doesn't he? If he seriously thinks we're going to go and do it, talk to your dad. Your dad was a season ticket holder. There is absolutely no way that in this day of that Mick Arteta is going to get this team forward. Considering that we got PSR concerns next coming up, we've got a tax bill we've got to pay. He's going to have to make some decisions to overhaul the squad, and he's going to have to make decisions to move it forward. Then you've got the young players, Max Dowman, Wanyeri, and Marcel Skelly. They need a coach who's able to develop them without any pressure, without any prejudice, to take them over and then make them first-team starters. All those disciplines that Mick Arteta needs to do next season, he ain't got a hope of doing it. Even when he's got Berta there, and that's why he's got to go. Thanks for everything you've done, but if Arsenal want to dominate, you can't have this coach here. You can't have him. His time's up, mate. Whatever happens, his time's up.
I think it was the first time I really saw that as well yesterday, was because it doesn't seem like his game or that management of that squad has been good enough. Rotating those players earlier on in the season. Declan Rice was given the runaround by our midfielders, and to be honest, it shouldn't happen like that. I just want to bring it on to one point as well, that when I was speaking with Matt, watching the match, we did think that Alex Jimenez was running a tightrope at one point and should potentially ended up in the book. Do you feel, Manny, I'll come to you first, because with Alex Jimenez, what sort of player he is. He is very, very skillful, very quick, could turn defence into attack in a moment. But he is one of those players that will get under the skin of other defenders and midfielders. And I think it played in our favour a bit, that.
It did to an extent, but I think, Kenny and Cole also agree that Jimenez was absolutely, magisterial because, again, obviously Kenny will make it crystal clear that Gabriel Martinelli is no longer fit for purpose, but any decent right back would pretty much, shut Martinelli down these days. But how he was able to, make sure that he kept his end of the bargain and knew how to defend well. I think the only weakness he had in this game was that whenever he tried, as I said, to sort of run forward with the ball and start to try to take things forward. I think maybe he got a little bit of nervousness because, he was easily, shut down. But his basic responsibilities when it came to keeping that area tight, it worked quite brilliantly. And maybe in some respects, there's an aspect to his game where he sort of tends to understand that certain attackers may be under pressure. And I think Iraola might very well have impressed on the boys that, Arsenal are going to be under loads of pressure to try to make things happen. You've got to try to keep your end up and try and frustrate them more than anything else. And I think it was that frustration more than anything which kind of boiled over. Now, with regard to Jimenez, obviously, not only did he shut Martinelli down, but there was also a wonderful tackle, as I mentioned, near the end of the game where he pretty much stopped Gabriel Magalhaes from having a shot on goal with a brilliant, tackle. And I don't know if he was fouled, but he was lying on the ground afterwards. I think he might have had a bit of a knock. But listen, you're taking a look at an Arsenal team where you have someone like Gabriel Magalhaes who also, ends up getting into the skin of many an opposition striker, and especially when it comes to us taking corners where we normally score goals. He's one of those people who's normally there and then around. He likes to bully goalkeepers. He likes to get in people's faces. So, Arsenal fans have no right to complain about Alex Jimenez because, it's a case of, pots calling kettles black, so to speak. But I have no complaints about the way Jimenez played. I think he did his job as one of the members of that tight Bournemouth line who really stifled us. And credit as well to Marcos Senesi and James Hill. I think James Hill is another example of how, one of your youth players has come in and has really grown leaps and bounds. And if Arteta were managing Bournemouth right now, I don't think he'd give James Hill that many more opportunities to shine. He'd get one more person saying we have to evolve. To heck with that. So it wasn't just Alex Jimenez. I thought every single one of your defenders played really well. And if he did sort of get into the skin of a few of our attackers, then, so be it. It just goes to show more than anything else that our attackers just didn't have... I mean, some of our players have this tendency of loving, giving it the big, large, as it were. But when they're also threatened with, having it given back to them, they just can't handle it. You've got to take what you dish out. Otherwise, just don't dish it out. So, no, I have no complaints about Jimenez. And I think, maybe you could say that there were some occasions where he might have been, crossing it. But Kenny said it perfectly, that the type of referee Michael Oliver is, he wasn't necessarily going to allow, niggly fouls, so to speak, to try to, dominate the way the game was going. And I think the defense, every single one of your players were just, intelligent in the way they conducted themselves. They knew that even if they had to get under our skin, they didn't overdo it. And they made sure they did their jobs well, while we were simply found wanting in all departments, pun intended.
Do you know what? It's good you bring up James Hill as well, because James Hill made a really, really, really good tackle. I'm sure it was at the start of that second half. From Gab, who was it? I'm trying to think. Was it Gokares? Gokares, wasn't it? Gokares had the ball, and James Hill won that ball before Gokares was going to hit it.
It might have been.
I honestly think he is an absolute outstanding player. But this is what we've got: we've got this ability to attract these young players. Simon Francis, Thiago Pinto. Massive credit for them for finding the likes of, and even players that have left House and Kirkes, Zabanier, bringing in Kroupi, bringing in Trefair, James Hill. Of course, we signed him from Fleetwood Town, which actually Cecil went on to discuss in the preview as well, because Cecil does know him very, very well. But this is what we do so well: is we bring in these young players. Rayan or Hian, I still can't say it properly. The R's are pronounced as H's, aren't they, in Brazil?
Try to come on, Rayan.
Yeah,
you'll get it soon. You'll get it soon. I promise you.
I will do, mate. I will do. But this is what we do so well, and I think this is what maybe Arteta needs to look at for the future, because Arsenal have got a lot more pull than Bournemouth have, but we are turning these players into, products that we can then sell to a big club like Arsenal, like, Real Madrid, like PSG.
Oh yeah, Semenyo.
Semenyo. Oh gosh, yeah. Honestly, Kenny, you didn't have to remind me of Semenyo. Honestly, I absolutely love the man.
That final, what he did to Hincapié, he took Hincapié to school. I know people say it was just said he was worried about being booked. No, it's nothing to do with that at all. I can tell you that. Hincapié is used to, like a lot of our fullbacks, playing inverted forwards. He actually played like a proper winger. It took him, went on his right foot, tried to put crosses in. Hincapié just couldn't cope. A right footer who basically bided his time and just every time just went past him and absolutely roasted him to the extent that, Calafiori, we needed Calafiori more than ever. But yeah, Bournemouth and Brighton, you've got to remember one thing about Bournemouth and your Brightons and all these teams. They've got billionaire owners. I mean, Bloom is like, as I think he does betting predictions. Yep. He's a billionaire. The guy who owns you is he an American billionaire?
Yep.
Yeah, Bill Foley.
Yeah, he's an American billionaire. And what they do is that they don't know football, but what they do, like Brentford, like Brighton, they get people who do know football. They use a scouting network, and we know Brighton use a sort of computerized scouting network, and they always look for the profiles, see if a player meets that profile, speak to the coach, they get him in, and it's more hits than misses. And I don't know what they do at Bournemouth, but the fact that you had Howson, he's gone over to Real Madrid. You got Kirkes, obviously American captain Tyler Adams. You've got Semenyo when you bought him from Bristol, and the amount of players you got in, unbelievable. Another thing as well, what I like about Bournemouth, you stick to your principles. Stick to your principles. Brentford's another team that I respect. That you use your money wisely. You don't try to be what you're not. You don't try and think, right, we're going to try and get in Europe every year, and we're going to buy this player and nothing. No. You get the right players who fit your sort of like profile, but are good characters. No big time Charlies. Your players know that if they play to the best of their ability, then they will get that move. But because Bournemouth, Brentford, and Brighton have a duty of care, they'll make sure the move is also right for the club, but also for the player, to the extent that he's got his right experience. He's played enough years in the Premiership, and then when he goes to these clubs, he's a ready-made player. How Liverpool used to do it under, back in the days in the boot room in the 80s and 70s. They didn't buy young players. They bought players who had experience of playing in the first division, which is the Premier League, for 3 or 4 years, played over 150 games, and they brought them because Liverpool don't tell you how to play in the 70s and 80s. You have to work out for yourself.
Yeah.
Players who've played in the Football League at the time, first division, who played 150 to 200 games, they know how to play football. They know how to manage games. That's why Liverpool dominated. Brentford, you look at Norgard, he's unlucky, but you look at the players that have left all 3 of the clubs, all had situations where they played over 150 games for those particular clubs. They go to the bigger clubs, they're good to go because they've learnt their trade and they've been let go at the right time when they've had significant Premiership experience, and they go on. And that's why I've got respect for Bournemouth, what they're doing. But one thing I always respect Bournemouth for doing is that to come to the Emirates and stick to your principles twice and win twice, respect.
Yeah, it was interesting as well, Kenny. Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry, Manny. Yeah, you go.
I think Carl wanted to... no, never mind.
You also got to give the scouting department a lot of credit as well, because I was the likes of Bournemouth and Brighton. They're not going to go out and hunt for like a star name and so on. They might hunt for one once in a while, get more merch and more ticket sales and so on. But it always looks like with these smallish type of clubs, the scouting department just get told, right, go out to the lower leagues, go out and find diamonds in the rough and see if they suit our system, see if they suit our philosophy. And if they do, send them back to us and we'll see what we go with them. And it seems like every single one, whether when Brentford bring one or Bournemouth or Brighton, it seems like it's a slam dunk every single time. So the scouting team get a lot of credit. They probably get a fair bit of bonus as well to say, yeah, thanks for that. Here's some extra money in for Christmas or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you guys were speaking about that. And Kenny, while you were gone, we were also talking about, Alex Jimenez and that backward line. But I love how both of you were talking about basically the sort of grooming that goes on at clubs like Bournemouth and Brighton and Brentford, how players are sort of encouraged to play more and learn their trade. One new player, of course, I mean, not necessarily new, but one other player who we're talking about, James Hill. And Kenny, I'll come to you here. He's sort of come in as a Bournemouth youth player and has now played quite a few games. There's a lot of controversy going on right now about how we might end up selling the likes of Ethan Waneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly, because when you sell these youngsters, you end up getting pure profit, so to speak, and we can end up reinvesting that particular money. But with Bournemouth, they're not willing to do that. So that is how you literally want to develop your youngsters and make sure that they are ready, because if you sell Nwaneri and MLS, we just don't know if they're going to sink or swim at better clubs, notwithstanding how much money they're going to have paid for them. So regarding James Hill, it could very well be that he might stay at Bournemouth for another few years and then possibly end up getting a move. It's the way you should treat your youngsters, right?
You got to do it from first and foremost. It's got to be from another economic point of view as well. Teams like Bournemouth, Brentford don't need to sell. If you're a Premier League club and you're run efficiently, and you finish in the places that Bournemouth, Brentford, and Brighton finish on a regular basis, then 9 out of 10 times you've got to remember you're not going to sell out in the FA Cup and League Cup because you don't play your best teams. Respectfully, you guys don't think you're going to win the you will give it a go, but Premier League existence basically pays the bill. So what's happening, right, is that because the Premier League deal is so evenly spread out, Brentford, Bournemouth, and Brighton will make more money per season than Bayern Munich and Dortmund, right? And the Italian clubs in the Internazionale, Juventus, because of that Premier League deal, because the Premier League sells its product all over 4 corners of the world. The Americans are obsessed with football because of that. Our cousins in the Far East want to pick love the game. Australia, Africa, and the Premier League knows that their product's the best because they always make sure the kickoff times are synchronised so our cousins from abroad don't have to all get up early in the morning to watch us play. They always get a fair shake, with the 12:30s, the 3 o'clocks, the 5:30s, even the 8 o'clocks, which I think are going to be the future, Saturday and Sunday. So they don't need to sell, which means they can give a player that scope to actually learn his trade. And then what happens is when that player has significant Premiership experience, 3 or 4 years in a team, and he's of a sufficient age, not only are you going to get a player that's ready-made, you're going to get a player that's more sought after, go a little bidding war, all of a sudden you can get a proper price for him, not one season wonder, and then all of a sudden that's not a duty of care to your younger players or any of your players. Plus, you're basically cheap. You're basically making things difficult for yourself because you're actually taking a gamble, which won't work because you can get more money if a player is Premiership ready, and then the England recognition comes along. Obviously, what happens. You play for Bournemouth and you want to play for England. Obviously, you know the score if you play for a bigger team, but you get a bit of England recognition. Before you know it, the price goes up. You can ask for more prices, and then you can take it or leave it, which Brighton have done with Casado. They done it with Trossard. They do it all the time. Bournemouth, you did it a bit with Semenyo. You went, meet our price or blah blah blah, and you know what's happened with the Bees as well. That's how you should operate. But you operate for a position of strength because of your financial stability and the way you run, and you've got Premiership stability, that you won't be bullied by these big clubs. And again, that's what the Premiership should all be about. You should have a pyramid by all means, and the money should trickle down. But we're in a situation now where owners, not all owners, want to be like Abramovich or the sheikhs who want to win now. Some owners want some sort of stability. They want to build some sort of network. They want to have a situation where they end the Premiership, they look at the profit margins and they know that the Premier League's profitable and they know that they'll make more money than the biggest clubs in the world because of their Premiership. So Bournemouth, again, shake your hands. Since 2016, 2015, 2016, you came up, got relegated, came back straight up and carried on playing your football. Congratulations on that. And that's how football should be played, and that's how clubs should be run.
Mate, no, thank you so much. Because I tell you what, it's been you know, such a journey from that -17 season, getting to the Premier League the first time round, we had to pinch ourselves, but it's actually the way we've been ran. We've now got an academy that we're going in for, Category 1 academy. I think it should be passed. I think we should get it. But the growth in this football club is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And, no longer, we always used to have, you look at the players that Southampton who started off at Southampton. A lot of those players were from the Bournemouth area
Mm.
because they would come and pick up our players. Nowadays, we're finding the best talent outside of Europe. Look at Julio Soler is another player who we signed from Lanús in
Mm.
Argentina. He is going to be a quality player. He's not all there at the moment. I think he's going to really struggle to actually dislodge Adrian Traffert. He's going to be a bit like a James Hill. He's going to have to really wait for his opportunity. Once he gets that opportunity, though, I've got no doubt he'll take it. Rayan, signed from Vasco da Gama recently. That was somebody, and it's that forward planning that clubs like ourselves, Brighton, Brentford have. As soon as Semenyo left, they knew who to bring in. But don't get me wrong, Rayan isn't Semenyo. He's not,
Mm.
up to that level at the moment. But he is only 19 years old. He'll
Mm.
get himself there. He's a really, really talented individual. Again, like Semenyo, he can play on either side, so he's interchangeable. It depends how you want him to cut in. He's a bit more lightweight than Semenyo. Semenyo is a really, really big lad. He's strong. He's a battler, and very, very quick. Manny, you probably remember actually when we signed Semenyo, I turned round and I'm sure I mentioned to you, and we'll have to find the video. I'm sure I mentioned to you on there. I don't know why we're signing Antoine Semenyo because when I watched him for Bristol City, he blew hot and cold. He'd have a good game, then he'd go missing. Then he'd have a good game, then go missing again. And Iriola brought that whole consistency out in him. I think the way we've got that contingency plan is perfect, and maybe, and I'll mention another football club I think that completely failed in the contingency planning. And I'm not going to mention Spurs because I think they're going to be in the Championship anyway next year. But Leicester, I have to have a dig at 'em. I have to have a dig at 'em. Leicester City.
Mm.
When Leicester City won the title and they started getting picked apart, they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
No
And
contingency plan.
absolutely zero, absolutely zero.
Mm.
Whereas I've got faith, guys. If Iriola was to go to another club, and I'll tell you what, Arsenal would probably be a club that would actually fit Iriola's style, his setup,
Mm.
and a club that he could definitely improve. We've got somebody else waiting in the wings. If that's Tommy Elphick, and we recruit from within,
Mm.
would make sense. It could be Sean Cooper, or it could be somebody else. In fact, one person that and it's quite funny when we was talking about Sporting, and I'd like also to get your views on how you approach that game because I don't think you can play the same side for both of those games. It is getting to the crunch period. You have got Rice running
Mm.
on empty. But of course, Sporting had to overcome quite a deficit from Bodo Glimt.
Mm.
And Kajil Knutson is probably the man. If you turned round to me and said, right, okay, Iriola's going, who would you want? Kajil Knutson would be the guy that I'd say, I'd want him to come in, and I think he'd make a success of it.
Can he go first, please?
Well, definitely, and that's the thing. It's contingency plans. Leicester had a contingency plan previously to they won the league. I think they kind of made an improvement when they got Brendan Rodgers in, and then they again went again. They got players like Madison, Vardy was still there, you know, and obviously they started getting really good players. Harvey Barnes, the Belgian guy. What's the Belgian guy who plays for Aston Villa?
Tielemans.
Very good footballers. Great bulk of the team. They had Ndidi. Ed Ndidi was a very
Didn't
good
have
player.
Morgan at centre half?
Morgan at serve, but they still had Schmeichel. So he built that team that got into Europe, won the FA Cup, was fighting for the top four, flew away. But as you said, when Brendan Rodgers came and all those players got picked off, there's no contingency plan again. Hence the fact that not only do they not have a contingency plan, they've built a new training ground. No money coming in. They regularly get into situations where they fail PSR. What happens? Deducted points. They've got deducted points again, and they're going to go in the third division. So you're completely right about it. In terms of like Sporting Lisboa, yeah.
They also suffered a tragedy, didn't they? They lost.
Yeah, they suffered a tragedy. I think the owner, the previous owner, was dedicated to the club, and the son just can't take the pressure. But it's under the son's watch that there has been a decline and there's been no contingency plan. Obviously, people have had to lose their jobs because when teams get relegated, people lose their jobs because you can't operate, you don't get the Premiership money. That's the situation. But in terms of Sporting Lisboa, you're right. Deep down, Arsenal fans want only one thing: is the league. That's the most important thing ever. The Champions League is a fantasy, and it's a beautiful fantasy where you want to be one of those clubs, A1 clubs who win a Champions League. However, with what Arsenal have been through, I want the league more than anything else because I think that you can't call yourself one of the best teams in Europe if you don't win your league. I see the Champions League as a fallacy and as a joke, really, because the team that finishes third and fourth will get into a group stage of a Champions League group, right? Just because they're English, German, Spanish, Italian. Yet the team from Scotland who's won the league, which is a hard league, has to go in a playoff to get into the group stages. That's an insult. How can you call that a balanced and fair tournament when you've got that rubbish? That's why I don't rate the Champions League as much as I should. I'd love to win it. I'll cry if we get the final and lose, like I did in Paris. But the Premier League, there's no dispute the best. So you're right. Mikel Arteta, what does he prioritise? Does he think we got enough because we won it? We got home advantage. Home advantage. Under any circumstances, Arsenal should go there and win 2 or 3-0. But there's this Arsenal. This Arsenal hasn't got, right, at the moment of speaking, have got players who are fully fit and are not playing well. In layman's terms, they're easy to beat. And the minute they go behind, mentally and physically, they lose all kind of belief, and then the manager doesn't know what to do because he hasn't got a plan B. He just makes up, he goes along. It's an opportunity for Sporting Lisboa to have a go at us because without any prejudice, without me trying to be ignorant or putting down in the Champions League, all eyes on Man City. We lose that game, regardless of how many points we're ahead of Man City, psychologically, mentally, and footballing wise, Man City will be will think that they can go and win this title because they will think, right, we beat Crystal Palace in that game in hand. We beat Arsenal. We get that goal difference in our favour. Both got the same amount of points. Mate, everyone on this panel is going to put their money and houses on Man City to go away and win it.
City prior to the game this weekend and our game were 11-2 to win the Premier League at that time. 11-2. I saw a lot of people turn and go, do you know what? That might be worth like £100 sitting on that.
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
I,
what is,
I,
you know what
I, I
is,
don't improvise betting at all, but that's just what I
Cole,
saw.
Cole, Cole, Cole. I know. So everyone on the panel, there are Arsenal fans who actually secretly took bets with good odds that we'll come away with nothing. That was before the League Cup final where we'll go over the quadruple. There's Arsenal fans who are so pessimistic who love Arsenal, but saw the odds and thought, I want a bit of that. Because realistically, that they think that will happen. There are a lot of Arsenal fans who can't say hand in out we're going to win the league. They talk a good game when you watch the panel shows where someone puts their head above the parapet and says, "Oh, what you lot talking about? We're only 9 points red. Oh, I want some positivity. You're all negative." But deep down, they think the same as us. Everyone in this panel, including our host, the Bournemouth fan, thinks Man City are going to win the league.
Yeah, I think Craig thinks that, but in his heart, he still wants Arsenal to win.
I do want you to win it.
Yeah. And, getting back to the question that you spoke about contingency planning, and obviously, you did probably mention that maybe, I vaguely remember you saying that maybe Semenyo wouldn't amount to very much, but then it's like, when you have managers who have good talent IDs, who definitely who are good judges of talent and who can provide that, environment to thrive, players can just grow from leaps and just go leaps and bounds. And that's what's happened with Semenyo. And I have no doubt that the more games that Ryan will play, the better he'll get. Maybe after a few years, as you agree, Craig, he might end up moving to bigger and better things. But then there's another player who maybe, obviously, Carl, Kenny and I know this gentleman very well, and his time at Arsenal was ill-fated in many ways. But one of the best qualities that this guy has is that, like Iriola, he's also Basque, and he also has a pretty good judge of a good talent ID as well as a good judge of talent. You consider what Unai Emery did with a certain Morgan Rogers, who actually was on loan at Bournemouth for a bit of time. I think you'll know, Craig. I think when Emery got Rogers to Aston Villa, he signed him from Middlesbrough, I think, and a lot of people were just raising their eyebrows and thinking, "Who the hell's this guy?" And now, barely 12 months or so later, he's now being talked about as the guy who should be starting for England in the World Cup ahead of a certain Jude Bellingham. And now you can't think of an Aston Villa side without him. There is, of course, going to be some talk about how he might end up moving on if Aston Villa don't qualify for the Champions League this season, which is why they're winning the Europa League this season, which is what they might be expected to do, will be all the more crucial. And another reason why I'm bringing Aston Villa is that, in stark contrast to Bournemouth and Brighton and others, they're now a club that's almost, required to sell some of their players. They sold Jacob Ramsey earlier on this season because they're the way they're sort of run with a sort of a high revenue to wage turnover, so to speak. It means that, unless they're able to get a consistent stream of revenue coming into the club in many ways, they are going to be forced to sell their players. And they're also going to have to start looking at a contingency plan, especially if they end up losing Unai Emery and several of their better players, because now they were also relegated. They came back in 2019. Since Unai Emery's come into the club, they've done brilliantly well in getting European football every season. But if they lose a few of those important cogs, who knows what can happen? And that's another reason why, with Bournemouth and the other clubs that have been spoken about, you've got an excellent manager right now who's got a really good talent ID and who's made the best of the squad he has. You've got a great environment where players can come in and make sure, as Kenny says, they stick to their principles. And because you're also financially well run, you're not in any serious danger of going bust, whereas certain clubs like Leicester and maybe Aston Villa, if they're not careful, can also go bust, especially if they don't maintain that level of success. And under Brendan Rodgers, as Kenny mentioned, they were competing, for the Champions League. Very unlucky to miss out one year. But then once some things started to, completely go wrong, they went badly wrong. And I don't know if they'll be able to recover. And so that's why Bournemouth, in many ways, are an example of how clubs should be run. I am hopeful that Aston Villa can win because Unai does deserve silverware. But again, there are still some problems. And the thing is that when clubs have these problems, the owners cannot be oblivious to all of this. And the fact that they are, it just goes to show you that there are some rogue owners who just don't care about their clubs, perhaps.
I just want to come on to a comment here from our Brentford fan. And I would like to get your thoughts on this, but I'll give my thoughts on it first. Craig, do you think Bournemouth are getting Europe this season? I've looked at this. And I've looked at all the teams today, who are in that race. Steve, I hate to say it, I don't think Brentford will. And the main reason being is the running is I think Brentford have got one of the worst runnings of the lot. I think our running is better. I think Brighton have got a pretty hideous running. Sunderland could well do it. The team, I think, when I look at their running, and do keep in mind they have got a little bit of a trump card in this whole battle as well. They've actually got Liverpool in the running, and we all know that they can actually up their game when Liverpool turns up. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be Everton. And they're not going to play it by being attractive. They're not going to get that European place playing like Brentford or Bournemouth or Sunderland do. They will get it because they'll just grind it, and they'll grind those results. It would be quite interesting to get your thoughts, of course, after yesterday, guys. Do you think we can do it? Am I being a little bit... what's the word? Am I being a little bit pessimistic with this?
Be careful what you wish for. And it's a nice thing to be in Europe, and it's good for the prestige of your club.
Yeah.
But your season, what will happen is that playing the extra game a week will test your squad. It'll be a test of Ariana's sort of player sort of management, minutes. Who is he going to play? Because at the end of the day, is he going to play the same team on the Europa League or Conference League as he would in the Premiership? What will be your priority? Because English teams in the Conference League and Europa League have got a good chance of winning it. You look at the best teams, one of the worst teams in England, two of the worst teams, two of the really bad teams in England, big name clubs, got the Europa League final. They were terrible in the league, but they got to Europa League final at times quite comfortably. There's a good chance that Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa can make the final. The reason why the English clubs do the well because of the tempo we're used to playing at. European clubs, majority of European clubs, not all of them, but teams that play in the Europa League can't cope with our tempo. So the temptation for Areola to go for that tournament would affect you in the league.
Yeah.
To the extent that you could find yourself in the bottom half of the table and could get sucked into the relegation battle. However, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for Bournemouth Football Club, and I think they're going to have to take it for the history of your club.
I love the idea of Bournemouth being in Europe, but I always think that don't think yourself that you're too big just to go straight into Europe now. I look at Bournemouth as like one of 10 goldfish in a small tank in your house somewhere, but you're managing your own. And if you start thinking, we're bigger than this, we should be able to go into Europe. Well, if you get chucked into the ocean, guess what? The sharks are yours to deal with from that point forward in Europe.
Yeah.
And I don't. Also, as well, your schedule completely changes. You're playing 2 games a week on some weeks as well, and you're also going to be playing you won't be playing on a Saturday 3:00 kickoff like you usually do anymore. It will be a Sunday. It will be a Sunday kickoff, like a 2:00 kickoff on a Sunday, and then you have Europa League to play on the Thursday. If you watch teams that have transitioned from when they have got into Europe, playing from a Saturday kickoff to a Sunday and then a Thursday, the transition, it does mess up teams. Now, likes of Forest and Villa, they've got the squad to do it, but they also, the only thing I would say is when a new team goes into Europe, it doesn't matter from whether you're from England, from France, from Spain, from Italy, or wherever, right? They will come in with a lot more oomph and a lot more want to give more because it's in European competition. Don't get me wrong, Dean Court will be absolutely bouncing on your first European night. No question about that. But I'll use this saying to make it more simple: walk before you run.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. Manny, do you think we could get Europe this season?
If not this season, I can definitely see you challenging next season or the season afterwards because you're in that position. And again, we've sort of lumped you into the other two clubs beginning with B, Brentford and Brighton, and how well they're run. It won't surprise me if they're in Europe. And I think Brighton actually were in Europe not too long ago. Yeah. I think they were in the Europa League, if memory serves me right. That was in 23-24. I don't know how well they did. But you can also definitely take heart from how Crystal Palace have done in this Conference League campaign. They lost Michael Olise some time back, and obviously Ebrieze is with us. There is, of course, no Eddie Nketiah, so I think the King of Zamunda will be out of action for the rest of the season with a hamstring injury. But they beat a Fiorentina team quite handily and should be able to get the job done back in Florence and end up reaching the semi-finals. So rather perversely, if we have 3 European teams in the semi-finals of European competitions, that only improves the coefficient. But with Crystal Palace, when they won the FA Cup, it was their first ever trophy. And now look how far they've gone. So I would say, Carl and Kenny have pretty much said it. You don't want to take that plunge when you don't feel ready, you don't have that level of confidence yet. But if you can get the opportunity, if you do end up getting the opportunity, just manage it carefully, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, there was, of course, a point where Crystal Palace were almost in danger of getting relegated. Now they will be comfortably safe. And if they do end up winning that Conference League, that's another feather in Glasner's cap and a great farewell gift to the club. And maybe they can build on that. And the prospect of some revenue coming in from Europe, be it ticket sales, that is also something that can be an extra carrot. But I would say don't, look too forward to it. Don't dream about it.
Yeah.
But don't sleep on it, if that makes any sense.
It's something that would be amazing for this football club, considering where we was. And Sean's got a very good point here. How are you doing, Sean? He's just finished work. I believe if we get Europe, Foley will bring in extra players. I think he probably will invest a little bit more. However, it is a case of, are we going to be bringing in the right players? We need to make sure we bring in the right players, not just anybody, just to fill the squad up. And yeah, good to see you as well, BBK Sports. But yeah, in all honesty, it would be an amazing feat. I just got a feeling, and let's be honest, they're not going to do it by being pretty. They aren't a pretty team to watch. I got a feeling it's going to Everton.
But Everton have to play Liverpool in the derby, and they've got to play Man City as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
The derby, Liverpool are hot and cold, where Liverpool don't know who they are anymore. Because the reason is that they're inconsistent. They reek of inconsistency, and they what Arne Slot has done is he's turned them from Bon Jovi into Mozart. Unfortunately, what's happened is that thing you used to fear when you played with a high tempo, it just isn't there, even at home. But they still have good players. They still keep the ball really well. So it's a derby game, and their fans ain't going to tolerate any sort of meters. And they got Man City, Brentford as well got a interesting run as well. They got to play Man City as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
We do as well. We
Yeah.
do.
You've got to play Man City as well.
But they come down here. That's the
They
good
come down
thing.
here. That's come down here. They've
Yeah.
been rampant, and then who else is there who's got the Europeans? So it's 100% up for grabs.
Can I throw another name out there just to see, just for shits and giggles? What about Sunderland?
Well,
I think it's possible.
Sunderland played everyone. They've played Arsenal twice. They played Man City twice, I believe, and they played us twice as well.
The run of fixtures they've got for the final 6 games of the season is away to Aston Villa, at home to Nottingham Forest, away to Wolves, at home to Man United, away to Everton, and then they finish off at home to Chelsea.
It's interesting. It's a very interesting one because you think about Everton, that's a 6-pointer. Chelsea may still need a win to get in the top 4 or the top 5 because I believe that we've got an extra place in the Champions League. So, and then, so there's some tricky games in there. You know the team
Forest are fighting.
Forest, you know the team, like, you know why Brentford, are they in the mix for the Europe?
They're 7th.
Yeah.
They're actually 1 point behind Chelsea currently.
You know what Brentford have got above all of you guys, and that's why, and that's why you've got to shake the hands of the scouts of Brentford. They got a striker who scored 21 goals this season.
Thiago.
Yes.
And that gives them a significant advantage over all of you guys. Someone who's got the ability to put the ball in the net when needed. 21 league goals. All right, he scored a few give-me's or penalties, but it's still 21 league goals. Plus, I saw him when we played them at their grounds at the away game. Anyway, he's an all-round striker. He's got everything. All right, don't get me wrong. He's got a heavy first touch. And he's very unsubtle in the way he plays, but holds the ball up, runs the channels, got loads of pace, good in the air, and he's got an eye for goal. And he wins. He turns 70% situations in the defender's favour into his favour because of his strength. So that's what they got going in their favour. Yes, they got a hard game. Man City, they've got some hard games. However, I think they've got to go Anfield as well, haven't they?
Yes.
Or into Anfield.
Yeah, end of season.
And so, but with that goal threat, you just never know. That's going to be the one. That's why I do look at them. I'm thinking, right, all the other teams, they haven't got Igor Thiago scoring goals. Still scoring goals as well.
He's been quality. He's been absolute quality this season, without a shadow of a doubt.
Sorry, Clive. Do you notice that Brentford have done that? You think about Brentford over years. They had what's his name? They had
Ivan Toney?
No, before Ivan Toney, they had who's the guy at Mope? They had Neil Mope.
Neil Mope, yeah.
Yep.
Neil Mope, Ollie Watkins, Ivan Toney, Wizza.
Yes.
Burmo.
Yep.
Burmo, yeah.
All those guys scored goals in the top flight. Wizza and Burmo scored 19 goals and 20 goals, respectively, league goals. Got their moves away. Ivan Toney got 20 goals or more in one season. Obviously, he got suspended. Then you got Watkins who couldn't stop scoring. If you add on Benrahma, that's what Brentford have always been able to do. They don't panic when they lose a striker. They always seek to strike gold, where they always seem to get guys who could score goals.
Yeah. No, it's very, very, very true. There's Brentford. I do think that they've got the hardest running. When I look at it, but it's a good point. It's a very, very good point, Kenny. Sean just mentions here, most fans put us for relegation when we lost so many players. Look at what the recruitment team did. It's about how the club is run if you're successful in Europe. I still think we need to bring in quite a few players just to make sure. I think you guys are spot on that we need to walk before we can run. But it would be an adventure if we can get it. Great. But we need to prioritize. If we do get it, we need to prioritize the Premier League above anything else. The last thing I want to do is go into Europe, win a European competition, and then get relegated, because that's going to do us nothing in the long run.
Yeah.
And all those players that do that.
Look at what Forest are doing now, Craig. I mean, they could make the Europa League semi-finals, guaranteeing an English Europa League finalist, but they're also in a relegation dogfight, although you would back them to survive. But that is a valid point there. But, if you do survive relegation and win a European trophy, I think fans are still going to remember that. That'll be something that they will remember for the rest of their lives. So there is going to be that temptation. You can't deny it.
Yep, definitely. Guys, I think we've just gone over 2 hours. I'll tell you what, I've really, really, really enjoyed this.
Sorry, Craig. I've been called away. So I want to say my goodbyes. Manny, I'm so glad that you introduced me to Craig.
Thank you so much for coming on.
So thanks, Cole. We meet again.
It's a pleasure, sir. It's a pleasure. It's been a long time.
Manny, me and Manny speak about all subjects. There isn't a sport that Manny hasn't watched. Snooker back in the day. We both love cricket. We even talk about rugby union and rugby league. There isn't a sporting subject me and Manny don't discuss. But
not so much rugby league, but definitely rugby union. We even had a chat on
league. You like rugby union. I can't stand rugby union, but although I've played it more than rugby league, but I love rugby league. But obviously it's cricket. But obviously I haven't. And Manny does. I am trying to get Manny into boxing because that's a sport I love. But football always comes first. So I'm going to have to say my dues. I'll see you guys soon. And
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on, Kenny.
You're welcome. And hopefully we'll get you back on again soon. I just want to plug as well. Craig and I are doing a series called Football Has a Problem. We're discussing quite a few topics like rogue owners, pundits, several other things. If you can watch any of those videos when you get time, Kenny, and offer some feedback.
Well, I can tell you football's biggest problem, kinsmanship. That's their biggest problem, kinsmanship. You get rid of kinsmanship and the game gets run properly. But kinsmanship, and it goes for all the stakeholders. There's kinsmanship when it comes to punditry, kinsmanship when it comes to the owners, and kinsmanship when it comes to decision-making. You look at even the fixtures, the Premier League fixtures. Do you know the Premier League will go up to one of the clubs as we speak right now and ask them to give them a list of the best times for them to have certain fixtures. And the big clubs always don't want a big game after a Champions League or European game, and they always get their way. Whenever you see the Premier League fixtures, always remember the big clubs, all the Premier League clubs get consulted. Don't think that the Premier League are doing it by themselves. Everything's done by kinsmanship and consultation, and the one who shouts the loudest always gets their way. I'll leave you with that.
There we are. I think we've got a topic, Manny.
We could, definitely. I'll have to do some research on that. Favoritism. Yeah. Cheers, Kenny. Thank you for coming. So much, we've got your handles here. KennyKen1972 on Instagram and Twitter. Please follow him. You won't regret it.
100%. 100%. And Carl, I tell you what, I've absolutely loved meeting you and having you on. Now, thank you so much for joining me and Manny as well today. And yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, you can win that title. I've got my fingers and toes crossed for you.
I'm a little bit pessimistic on winning the title situation, but it all falls on next Sunday. The fork in the road is next Sunday, and we find out which lane we end up taking. So yeah, but no, thank you very much for having me on, mate. It's much appreciated.
No problem. Please plug your channel as well.
So my channel is Ruthless Schooner, and you'll find me on Instagram as well, Ruthless Schooner 35. And just a little bit of a side quest that I do. I host a podcast for an NFL team, the New England Patriots, known as the Patriots Touchback Podcast. But that's going to be changed next Thursday, because we are being rebranded. We're under a brand new banner now, and we're being unveiled for it at the Hippodrome Casino in London on the 23rd of April. So that's so we're all looking forward to that. Like 5 of us on the pod, all for all different parts of Europe, you could say, because our boss lives on a rock in the Mediterranean. I live down here in the south. We got my 2 co-hosts. One's based in Ipswich, one's based in Manchester. Then our new guy who only joined us about 3 or 4 weeks ago is based up in Leeds. So we're spread out everywhere across the European Isles. So we never ever get to meet up that often. But when we do, we always make the most of it. And next Thursday night is going to be it's going to be carnage. Just put it that way. But no. But thank you so much for having me on, mate. It's much appreciated. Manny, thank you for sending me the invite as well. Much appreciated. And
always, I'm glad I got to have you on. And if we do have a question, will Tottenham stay up? It's looking more and more difficult by the day, Sion, I would say.
I'll come clean. I did a hate along on my channel this afternoon, and it was fucking perfect. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, I'll tell you what, he's. I don't know if either of you watch Talk Sport, but Jason Cundy has been really winding up Jamie O'Hara for a number of weeks, and I just dread to see what he's come out with this evening. If he's on there with Jamie. I think
it's Sunday night. It won't be on Sunday. It'll be tomorrow night, I think.
Oh, of course it will be. Yes. I bet the Ange Postecoglou mask might come back out again. And I just want to finish on this note as well. Some fans also said we were favourites for relegation, eh, Craig? Hands up. Yeah, I there was me turning around and saying, yeah, Thomas Frank's gone, this Keith Andrews guy, I don't know what he's going to do. Yeah. How wrong was I? And Manny, a pleasure as always to see you. And
never a chore.
Football has a problem again next week. So, yes, I'm looking forward to that, mate. Looking forward to that.
You and me both.
Happy days. As I say, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell button below. Please do go and subscribe to Carl's channel as well. Follow us all on our socials. We don't bite, we're all friendly. But until the next one, up the Cherries, up the Gunners as well. Come on, I want you guys to do it. And we shall see you in the next one. Thanks for joining us.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
I should be like you, Mel.